say some things about trauma. And I think it's another one of those things where our definition or our lack of understanding of what is actually going on under the surface is keeping us trapped. I think it keeps us trapped in our personal lives, but also, more importantly, as a society. Trauma is not just something that happens to an unfortunate part of the population. And I think that that's really dangerous thinking, because anytime you separate out a group of people and you label them, there's shame, and there's the implied positioning that they're somehow lesser beings. Trauma is such a dramatic word, and the second we kind of hear it, we like back away and distance ourselves and close our ears off. But the truth is that all human beings experience trauma. It is what happens anytime something happens to you that you don't have the tools and the emotional resources to remain larger than. In those moments, your nervous system is overwhelmed. You lose like that connection to yourself, and the circumstances become way greater than your sense of your own existence. So we have a physical body, obviously, which is what we tend to focus on, and I think that's where a lot of stuff is getting mixed up, because I very rarely hear a part of the conversation which is even more important than the physical body, which is the energetic body. If you think about it, what's making your physical body move? Your life force, your essence, your spirit, all of that is equal, or if not more important, than what's going on with you physically. And so the physical body, when you're experiencing something that creates that state of overwhelm, it continues to move forward, obviously, through linear time. You get through it, you go on. But the linear time doesn't apply so much to the energetic body. And so part of you stays actually frozen in the suffering of whatever happened. And so because part of you was so overwhelmed that it became frozen in that state, what happens as you move on through life is almost as if there's kind of like a thin transparency overlaying everything in the present moment, and it distorts your lenses. You can't see clearly. You can't really be open and experience the true neutrality of situations. Everything is a little bit tinted or tainted or feels like something else, that if you really were clear, you would see you're not actually responding to the present moment. So I don't know if it's really accurate to call it a thin transparency. I mean, it kind of is, but it's tinting everything, but it's also operating in the background of everything too. So you're kind of like wrapped in it. And some people go their entire lifetime without ever awakening to that or being able to see it. And I think that that's one of the greatest tragedies. And I think that this is one of the greatest contributing factors to depression. I have, in my book, I have a section on all of the identifiable factors of depression. I've never met a person that suffered from any kind of anxiety disorder. Even I think a lot of bipolar is so overdiagnosed. A lot of it is just energetic system deregulation and mismanagement of resources, but ADD, all of that. But I've never met a person who you couldn't trace kind of back the things that happened in their life that shaped them, and what they came to understand about themselves, and how it shaped their views of the world, how that sort of thin transparency skewed their lenses, and you couldn't understand the state that they found themselves in, whether it was depression or anxiety, or some forms of actual bipolar, where it's I think bipolar is such a catch-all term these days, and it's so overdiagnosed, and it's often really, I believe, an energetic issue. But I think that one of the underlying factors of depression is this, I call it a complex psychological trauma. So what that means is, yeah, you weren't, kidnapped by a van and held captive for 12 years. And maybe and it's tricky because maybe you weren't overtly abused in your life by someone, but there were things that happened that shaped you in ways that part of you were overwhelmed and confused, didn't have the language, didn't have the mental capacity at the time to see what was going on, have that awareness and be awake to it, so that you could protect yourself in whatever way. And so it overwhelmed your system, and part of you stayed frozen in that suffering. And it could be something very subtle that no one would ever diagnose as abuse. But it's a combination of your particular set of sensitivities and what you needed, what your spirit needed to really, as nutrients to really flourish, and what you actually received. And if those two things don't line up or don't plug in, at least on enough of a level, you never learn to really be in touch with your needs. You never learn to articulate them. You never really feel seen. There's shame. There's all kinds of issues with self-worth. There are ways that you do not develop, which create a suppressed level of functioning as an adult or as a teenager or even as a kid, just in general. So it's important to look at all of that stuff and realize that being affected in that way, where part of you moves on but part of you is frozen in an experience that then warps your lenses and causes your operating system to not function so clearly, is part of the human experience. I hope this is making sense. I've got so much content in here, and it's like the neural pathways between all of that and my speaking ability is there's like a big traffic jam, and I'm really working on it. I just want you to know that. So I'm gonna attempt to reframe trauma. And this is the first time that I've ever, this completely makes sense in my head. I can see the whole thing. And it's the first time I've ever tried to put it into words and let it out. And I just say a prayer for me. Buckle up, it's gonna be a rough ride. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, I don't know what you would call it, a belief system that I have. And it's not like a religion, like I firmly believe this at all times 100%, and I bring it up at every party that I go to. It's something that I don't know, my belief system, it kind of varies at times, and I pull in things as I need them. So I'm just going to pull in this right now for the purposes of trying to broaden our understanding of trauma, and I might end up trying to convince you that there is a little bit of magic going on, but we'll see. We'll see if it gets that far. So, it's Sunday, man. Why am I talking about this shit? Okay. So, I never understood when people would say we are all one. It really bothered me, and it kind of, that phrase got a bad rap for me because of the kind of people that would say it. I noticed they were not people typically that saw the value in deodorant and toenail hygiene. And so because of that, and because I was judgmental, I shut out anything that I heard from these people. But I think I've come to understand what that saying means, and what that very popular concept means. And I'm going to see if I can explain this. Okay, so if you look at the universe, like all of our known galaxies and solar system and all of the life forms within it, everything that exists is made of what? Atoms and electrons, molecules. And we are all the same energy. We think we're not, because right here in this little aspect of the energy field, I have my own consciousness, which I then can use to look out at other people and determine that I'm different from them. But if you look at the greater picture of the universe, everything is just one energy. And I finally get that now. That concept used to really offend me, because I thought, like, that guy over there, there's no way that I'm not one with him. And especially, oh my God, especially possums. Nope, not one with possums. Nope. But if you zoom way out, all of that little, that separation between things becomes irrelevant. And the interesting thing about this giant energy field that we are all a part of is that it's expanding. So, one could surmise that the purpose of life, of existence, is to expand, right? That's what this energy field is doing. So if that is the case, then where am I going now? I lost my path. I need like a sidekick here to remind me where my trails started. Okay, so if that is true, you could look at your life in terms of, I have this consciousness right here, and it's bigger than my physical body, right? It extends out, not really linearly, because it extends to things I can think about. I can think about things in outer space. It's sort of a nebulous thing, but it's much larger than my body. And within my particular consciousness, this is how I think of it, I've been assigned like a sector of this expanding energy field. So, okay, I know this is weird. I know I'm a little bit crazy, but the way that I console myself about that is that if I was truly crazy, I wouldn't know it. And I know that I'm crazy, and I feel like I've been through a hell of a lot to earn this level of crazy, and I've decided that I'm gonna wear it proudly. So, okay, so here's my, what the hell? Here's my sector. Here's my sector of the energy field. Oh God. All right. And so I've been dealt this hand in life. I've been given these circumstances in life that I was born into, right? And in my particular case, they were, I like to use the word inconvenient, but they were tragic. They were horrible. They were horrifying. I've been the last 2 years in and out of a PTSD treatment center, and these guys are like the Navy SEALs of helping with these types of issues, and they even say that what I went through the first 14 years of my life was one of the worst cases of abuse that they've ever worked with. So that's why I like to call it inconvenient, because it's just like a big, I don't know. It feels like rebellion, I'm supposed to have these tragedies and be this victim, and like fuck that noise. So okay, where's my sidekick? Where was I? Now I'm talking to him like he's here. This is great. Okay. Shit. So, okay, I was dealt these circumstances, these very difficult circumstances. So I had this very negative, dark, difficult, dense, whatever energy you want to call it, coming in to from the energy field into my existence, into my sector, my consciousness, into my body, it's stored in there, all of that. So when that happens, you can do, how many things? 3 maybe? I'll just say we could do a couple things. I can store that within myself and sort of, really steep in it, and I can stuff it down, and I can fight it, and I can remain stagnant for the rest of my life, or I can be so overwhelmed by it that I put it back out into the world. I'm just like I become like just really bitter and mean and fuck everybody, and I'm just gonna hurt people. And so that could be my way of metabolizing my pile of dark energy, which is to put it back out in a way that's not expansive, right? Because I think there are 2 states that we can live in as human beings. Either a state of expansion, which is when you open your heart and you metabolize things and put them back out in a different way, or contraction, which is like you're totally shut down, you're stagnant, you're so affected by things. If you're emitting any kind of energy, it's not something anyone wants to be around. But okay, so I could go that route, which is what most people do if they're not awake to this stuff. So even on a small scale, for example, I was in the car with a friend, and and this guy like pulled this crazy ass traffic move right in front of us, and then back again, and like it was pretty nuts. It was like something out of a movie, right? So she reacts to it, and she's like, "You fucking asshole! I can't believe that guy!" Blah, blah, blah. And so negative energy came in, and she didn't hold it, which was good, I guess, but she just spewed it back out in the same way that it came in, and as kind of pollution on me in my car. And so my attitude, and I've been in that state. I was in that state for many years, and so I get it. I'm not judging her, but my attitude was, I like your style. This guy, like, I kind of wanted to know him. How else does he go through his life? What is he achieving? Is he like, it seems like he's making moves. It was interesting, and it was funny. No one got hurt, but it was like, I admired him in that moment. You gotta go somewhere, like, pull it off. And so I took this negative energy that came in, and I converted it to humor and good thoughts and laughter and things that I found interesting. And so I filled myself with good feelings, and then I released those into the world. Well, just in my car. They didn't make it any further than that. Well, now they are, but that's cool. But I think that is one of the most beautiful things about being a human being, is that we have that ability. We're kind of like alchemists in a sense, where we can take things in and we can convert them to something very beautiful and very light, and put that back into the world and live in that state of expansion, which is sort of in keeping with what the universe is doing. So where did I start with that? Okay. So going back to my little sector of the expanding energy field that we are a part of, that is what I've resolved to do in my life, is to live in a way that I'm taking all of that, and I'm not absorbing it. I'm not putting out living a mistrustful life that's hurting other people, living in a state of contraction, but I'm taking every single bit of that and I'm turning it into something that feels very good in my heart, and that I think is a much brighter energy than what came in. And so there have been many times, especially in these last 2 years, LaCroix, I'm a junkie, where it's been very difficult for me to function, quite frankly, because I'm working through a lot of stuff, and so there are times when I'm very, very brain foggy, and I have a lot of struggles. I won't get into. I'll do another thing about PTSD and some of the stuff that goes on with that and the ways that you can heal from that, because you can. It's just conditioning. It's just your system being overwhelmed and conditioned into all these other patterns, and you can absolutely grow past it. But so what I'm saying was, oh yeah, I remembered on my own. I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to consult my imaginary sidekick. This is progress. So wait, did I lose it? No. Okay. So there have been times where I physically cannot maintain on my path in terms of my life goals and my agenda and my to-do list and all of that, and it's very easy to get very down on yourself. But I love to think to myself, well, okay, yeah, I didn't cross 17 things off my list today, but I stayed in that state of expansion. I somehow opened. I somehow, showed up in my sector today in a way that converted some kind of darkness to some kind of lightness, even on the smallest scale, even if it's laughing at someone in traffic when you could, hunt them down and throw the groceries out of your bag at their car and give them a finger and tell them what you think of their mother and all of that. Sometimes it's a matter of connecting to that much greater purpose, and then that can ease a lot of your anxieties or your tendency to feel bad about yourself in everyday life with the purpose that you've decided to adopt in your actual physical life. Fuck, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so here is where I hope the magic happens, if I can articulate this correctly. Now, I believe that this is going to be one of the best things out there on the internet, what I'm about to say. The very best thing on the internet is this picture of a ferret. It's a real ferret, not a drawing, and he's like this, and he's wearing a bathrobe with like a furry collar, and it says it's called being rich, sweetie. Look it up. And that to me is the best thing on the internet. But what I'm about to say is going to be the second best thing. So here's the thing. In order to grow and in order to evolve personally, within your sector, we need things to happen that we push against. It's like the gym. If you go to the gym and you don't use any weights, you're not gonna gain any muscle, you're not gonna grow in any way. But as you're pushing against things, that's how you're developing your size and your mass. So we need for everything in our life not to go, not to coddle us and to give us exactly what we need, or else we would not develop in any way as people. We would not evolve. Our little sector of that greater energy field would not be expanding in the slightest. Yeah, life would be extremely comfortable and it would be fun, but there would be no evolution. So um, here's what trauma does. I'm gonna need a paper. Okay. Oh, yes. Monster Jam. Yes. I did drive 6 hours, I don't know, by myself to Las Vegas to go to Monster Jam. 3 friends bailed on me. I didn't care. I went by myself. Best day of my life. When the guy from Quiet Riot came out to sing the national anthem, I just knew I made the right choice. It was incredible. If you follow my stories on Instagram, I have a vast library of videos from that evening that I work in constantly. I don't know if anyone enjoys it, but I sure do. That's what's important, right? Okay, so, oops, I got water on here, oh well. I'm gonna try to explain this. Now, hold on, I gotta flip my brain around so I can see this. Okay, got it, yeah, okay. So, if, I better make, I don't know like what you can see over there. I'll make a big X. Okay, so if this is, let's say, I don't have the right words. Okay, if this is your lifespan, how do I explain this? The evolution of your energy just in a normal life, not too much tragedy, no real extreme traumas, regular stuff, breakups that are a little bit painful, some strife. You grow through your experiences, just through aging, through going through life, work situations, that kind of thing. So you would just say, and this measurement means nothing. It's just listen to the whole thing. You can decide at the end if it doesn't make any sense and send me angry emails. So this would be how far you would grow, expand, evolve, whatever you want to call it, in a pretty normal life like that, right? But then let's say something like right about here, whatever. I mean, I don't like that we identify trauma as a specific incident always, because I think that's confusing. I think often there are many, many years of life where some kind of circumstance could be going on that will then keep you frozen, part of you frozen in the suffering of that, just like I explained in the beginning. But let's just, for illustration purposes, say, okay, something happens here that is as I described in the beginning. And so what happens is, you continue to move through and you become very, it slows down. You get stagnant, you get stuck, and you could spend your whole life in a suppressed level of functioning because of whatever this is. And you could, if that's the case, then your evolution by the end of your life will be decreased to here, let's say. Let's give you that much. Maybe you don't move maybe move a little further, I don't know, but not very much. It greatly inhibits your energetic expansion, evolution during your lifetime. Okay, so and then where it gets really fucked is that part of what's happening is that you're doing it to yourself, and you're doing it for a reason, because you're trying to free yourself. So what we'll often do, and I'm really a professional, like out of all of my skills, I am the best at this, which is exactly replicating the crime scene in present life, so that you can feel all of the same horrible feelings and sense of helplessness and overwhelm and all those other joyous feelings. And that's a separate conversation why we do that, but basically in those moments you became conditioned to a certain understanding of yourself, and it's also an energetic injury. And so we do that, and we kind of get caught in this little loop. So life in here, however big that distance is not great. I'm just being lighthearted with that choice of words. But now here's where the magic can happen. If you address the circumstances that caused that energetic split between your physical body and your energetic body, and that's something that I go over in great detail in my book, because I don't think that we have anywhere near enough resources or people who understand that process or that journey. It's quite, well, okay, so I had a wall one time. It was kind of a big wall, and it was covered in chalkboard paint, and I took chalk. I got to dig up this picture. It looks like a crazy person did it, but I basically mapped out the entire formation of the human operating system and our lenses, and like connected it to all of our experiences, and there were like all these, you know, arrows and tunnels where everything was connected, and it was this journey to freedom from all of this, and how everything in the present life connected with the past, and then your future vision of yourself is a big part of it. I'm not explaining it good. You know, it's Sunday. Give me a break. I'll talk about it another time. Anyhow, so if you stop numbing, stop coping, stop denying, stop trying to muscle through with brute force, all of that, and you turn around and you face this thing that was so large that you felt you did not exist in those moments. This is all that existed. You did not, when just the act of facing it alone, you regain your size over it, because it's your choosing to address something, and that's a state of power over something that you had no power over. But so you go in, and Pema Chodron is an amazing, what is she? She's a Buddhist monk, I guess. She has this book called When Pain is the Doorway, and I love that title. This is not what I mean, it's kind of related, but I'm not describing what she describes in the book. But I love that title so much, because pain is the doorway. It is the doorway to, I'm going to call it a rabbit hole, because I love that idea of just slipping into another dimension. So linear time doesn't exist out here, and you're going in this doorway to your pain, and that is where all of the answers lie. All of the answers to any of the questions of your existence that you ever had. It is where you find your purpose. It is where you do the work to cleanse yourself. You cleanse the situation of the pain, and then all that remains is the gold, is what you, the gifts, the ways that you were shaped, and the skills that you had to acquire in those moments, what you had to become because of what happened. If you can do the work, which is what I'm describing in the book, because I know that's kind of like, okay, do what work, but to cleanse the pain off the situation, and all you're left with is the gold. And then suddenly all of these gifts that you have, these skills, these ways of, these perspectives, these ways of relating to the world, and what you had to become as a result of this, you begin to look back at your life here, and you began to see how you can plug them in, and that becomes your edge. And so what ends up happening, okay, here's the magic where I'm neck and neck with the ferret in the bathrobe. So good. It's called being rich, sweetie. Look it up. Anyway, so so when you begin to plug that back into your life, you discover your purpose, you discover your gifts, you discover a greater calling, you discover esteem on a whole other level, you discover a connection to yourself and to the magic of the universe in a way that would have been totally lost on you if you had just traveled along this path. And what ends up happening, here's the magic, are you ready? What ends up happening is that you come out way down here. I get total goosebumps. So you come out way down here. And so you actually become a version of yourself that you would not have been able to become otherwise. I mean, that is magic, that is miracle. And so I think that because we don't offer these perspectives to anyone, we are missing out on a huge part of the population who has tremendous gifts and has all of these abilities that are so hidden within the layers of what they've experienced, kept frozen in place by shame. And if you think about it, since I'm obviously not afraid to be weird, because the whole, like, this is weird stuff. If you think about it on a greater level, if you believe what I was saying about the giant, that we're all just this giant energy field, these are the people that are evolving or expanding energetically this far in a lifetime are the ones that are on the leading edge of that expansion of their energy ball. So those are the people that we need to be supporting, and that we need to be that we need to find the beauty in, and we need to be lifting up, and we need to be celebrating, and we need to develop so much more support and help and understanding to help in this process, because then I feel like we're doing, this sounds weird, like, doing the Lord's work. I don't mean it like that, but we're living in keeping with what the universe is doing naturally, which is expanding. Should be helped to figure out what those gifts are and then plug them back into that life. And it's never going to be just a generic life. It's going to be something, doing something, hearing a calling, rising to a calling that is a very special need out in the world, that you can't really conceive of until you go kind of off that path and into that blackness, and then it all starts to make sense. I think that I think of perspectives as kind of like a kaleidoscope. I know myself, anytime I've been suffering or feeling trapped in suffering, it's because I was looking at something from the wrong angle. And if you can know that and just like see, okay, how am I going to shift this to a perspective that is beautiful and feels good and brings out the most, brings out a story of a compelling future that inspires you to show up in your life in a way where you truly step into the role of becoming the hero of your own journey. I think we need to start looking at all of our perspectives in terms of that way. How can we make those shifts? I don't know. I hope I don't watch this and not understand a word I said. It makes sense in my head. Anyhow, I'm out of material, so that's all I got.